Hey, it's me, Leanne, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. So, last week we talked about how sitting for 6 to 8 hours a day is actually causing issues with your health. So, we talked about increase in risk of diabetes, heart disease, obesity, all this stuff, right? Nuts. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the physical things that happen, those aches and pains you get, what happens with your bones, why we get all this stuff going on. And here's a fun fact. Our bodies are actually made for standing. And if you think about it, we probably sit about 80% of the time, right? So take a minute and think about what position your body was in yesterday, for example. What were you doing all day? No, really, go ahead. For me, I was sitting. I was sitting all day long. And how did my body feel? It hurt. My lower back hurt, my hips hurt, my thighs were aching. I was like, oh my God. And it's funny because it's like, I knew this because I was preparing for this little Wellness Wednesday. And I just had to keep getting up and moving around. And it's like, I just really noticed how painful it is sometimes to sit for extended periods of time. And here's kind of why. Our muscles are in kind of like a constant tug of war. There's, one flexes, one extends, one pushes, one pulls. And that's just basically how our body is made up. And when those things are out of balance, that's when it wreaks havoc with our body. And that's when we get aches and pains and all that stuff. When we sit down, our stomach muscles actually relax, right? That natural curve in the back of our spine kind of goes away. So instead of going like this, it's going like this, right? It's kind of out. And our shoulders kind of naturally slump forward a little bit. So I want you to try that. I want you just to, sit down for a minute, just how you would normally sit down, and notice what happens to your body, right? Do you feel that your stomach muscles are soft? Do you feel like that curve in your lower back is kind of one way? And do you feel that your shoulders have kind of moved forward a little bit, right? And that's not how our bodies are meant to sit. So what I want you to do now is notice what happens when you re-engage your core muscles, your stomach muscles, right? So kind of pull them in right here. And if you just even saw what happened with me, I got sitting up a little bit straighter. So you tighten your stomach muscles, that curve in the back of your spine kind of comes back. When you sit up a little straighter and your shoulders kind of go back where they need to be. And that's what we want. And when you stand up, the same thing happens. If you just stood up right now, you would notice that automatically happens. Your stomach muscles engage, that curve on your back comes back, and your shoulders go where they need to be. And here are 4 other muscles that kind of wreak havoc with lower back pain from sitting too long. And it's kind of like a little bit of an anatomy lesson. So the first one is your hip flexors, which is right here. It's your psoas is actually your strongest hip flexor. And its motion is bringing your thigh forward, right? And then your hamstrings, back your leg, they're extensors. So actually what they do is bring your thigh backwards. Your QL, which is, its nickname is your hip hiker muscle. It kind of lifts your hip up and down. Sometimes if you go out dancing, you might come back the next day and be like, oh my God, what is this? You were shaking your booty too much. Your hips were going back and forth too much, right? And then your glutes. Your glutes are basically the largest and the strongest muscle in your body, and they are a pelvic stabilizer. They used to keep your hips where they're supposed to be, your pelvis where it's supposed to be. It also helps to keep that natural curve in your spine, right? And why is this important? I'm going to tell you. So sitting for extended periods of time, you kind of like this. You notice your hip flexors are shortened. They become tight. And what happens there is, at that point, your QL kicks in to kind of help keep your back where it's supposed to be, to give your back some support. So that's overworked. So sometimes when you stand up after you've been sitting for a really long period of time and you get that like, oh my God, I get it all the time, right here. That's a shortness, right? Or, right here, that ache right over the top of like your hip bone in the back, that's your QL. It's working too hard. It's tired, Sitting too long also weakens your glute muscles. So without your glute muscles, those little tiny spine muscles that go up the back of your spine there, they kick in and then they get tired quickly. So sometimes you get that like aching pain that kind of goes up the middle of your back and you're like, oh my God, that's what that's from. And then tight hamstrings, that messes with the natural position of your pelvis. And it also can cause knee pain. That knee pain you might get in the back, it might kind of radiate up the side. Your hamstrings kind of cross over the back of your knee, and your gastrocs or your calf muscles come up the other way. So when those are tight, it kind of causes havoc in that area. And if you notice, these all have something to do with your hip and spine alignment. Again, when things are out of balance, things start to hurt. So again, what can we do about it? First, I want you to just notice. Notice when you're sitting how your posture is. If you can sit a little bit taller, re-engage your core muscles, that will help alleviate some of those aches and pains, because the muscles that are supposed to be working and doing what they're doing are doing it. And the ones who aren't. So they're not unhappy. Everybody's happy, right? Get up and move around like we talked about last week. Go down the hall, talk to a coworker, get a cup of coffee, go to the ladies' room or the men's room if you're a man. Who knew, right? And then stretch. Stretching is huge. So next week we're actually going to hit the floor. I'm going to show you several stretches that will kind of help alleviate some of the aches and pains in those areas. And I think that's it, That's all I have for today. So thank you for stopping by. Enjoy this wonderful day. And bring your yoga pants next week, okay? Thanks. Bye.